Hey there, YouTube! Welcome on back to Artichoke Dip. My name is Rob, solo tabletop gamer. As you can see, we got the tabletop here, and this is the next video for the Temple of Elemental Evil. Of course, I haven't reached Red Larch yet. That is yet to come, working that way. So, let's talk about the last video. In the last video, the adventurers had, at that point, escaped the town of Longsaddle. The tavern was burning. Michael, the NPC, who is a druid that specializes in healing, saw that the tavern fire was the perfect diversion and it was time to get out of town, and they may be able to escape without being noticed. Or did they? That's the question. And let's pick up where that left off. As they left the town of Longsaddle out into the vast wilderness, and the sound of the turmoil of the town, the fire, the screaming, and all that drowned it out to the soothing sounds of nature. They calmed down a bit, and the uneventful travel was a welcomed afternoon for them, if you will. As they entered into a thicker part of the forest, the tree canopy that was so thick almost seemed to cast this eerie, weird green light upon everything that they passed through. Michael led them through this old forest to a ridge. The steep ridge went downhill to what looked like a boulder covered by large amounts of brush and thicket around it. To their surprise, there was actually a hidden door that, as they passed through it, they came out the other side to a trail that wound down the other side of the hill, leading them into this quiet little monolith area in the forest. And this is where, I'm going to put that down, guy there. This is where the story continues. As the NPC and the characters enter into the monolith, it's at that point that Rangrim, he's gonna study these monoliths. He's kind of like awestruck by this, and I'm gonna see if he can notice anything about those. So, let me see what the DC is gonna be. I rolled a 7 on a 1d10, that's gonna make it a 17. But he does, however, have stone cunning. So let's see what he can do there. Stone cunning, I get double the proficiency bonus for history and for history check. So this isn't part of dwarven history, but let's see if he notices anything about it. So he's gonna get a +4. 6. Wow. And no, that would be a 14 even with his bonuses. So he's just awestruck. He's looking at this old, how do you put it, construction of these stones, the way that they are stacked on top of one another. And just taking it all in. This is a completely different stonecraft than he is used to seeing, and it's quite intriguing to him. I'm going to see if Carnu notices anything. Of course, he doesn't have stone cunning. So he will just get... Well, it's daylight too, so he's going to have disadvantage. So let's roll 2. He'll be disadvantaged. But he will get a +4. Oh, man. Two 10s, so I guess it doesn't matter. Either way, he doesn't notice really particularly anything of interest to him or out of the ordinary to him, other than he's just shielding his eyes from the bright sun light and trying to take a breather after everything that has happened. It's time to wind down. It's at that point that our NPC here, Michael, explains to him that in order to utilize this area that is very sacred, that certain prayers have to be observed, and he has to go to the woods and he has to offer up a prayer to the gods. If not, it could bring something bad upon them. So it's at that point he ventures off and he explains to him not to leave this area, that the vast wilderness they're in, if they were to get lost before sundown, more than likely he would not be able to find them and retrieve them. Two hours pass by, and in that 2-hour time, what I want to do is I want to check Merrick. I want to see if Merrick has regained any health yet. So he's had 2 hours to totally still, not being carried around, jostled around, to be able to totally heal. Let's see what the difficulty class of that's going to be. A 19. Oh, man. Alright, so he's got a +3 for his constitution. Nope, he doesn't lose anything, but he doesn't gain any hit points yet. So he'll need a little bit more healing before that's going to happen. A couple hours have passed, and our druid friend here has returned. So at that point, he has some kindling underneath his arm that he sets here in the center, and he asks Ragrim to give him a hand collecting more firewood for the evening. As they do that, they bring the firewood up and they stack it, and he gets a fire going at that point. It's growing into late evening at this time. The sun is beginning to set. And Michael explains to him not to worry, that they are in a safe area and that not too many people except for initiated druids really know about this area. And he tells him, you can feel free to get some rest tonight. He said, I've had to use this location a couple of times before and it served me well. He said, so I'm pretty sure you're going to be safe. He said, unless we've been followed. He says, which I don't think we have. He said, we should be alright. So, it's at this point in the story, I'm going to add in a new twist to it to keep my story moving forward a little bit, but also I like having more than just one single plot line. I like having some multiple plot lines I go through my RPGs. And what's going on at this point that they cannot see is further out from their area. There are two figures cloaked in dark hooded cloaks, I'm sorry, that's what I wanted to say, under the cloak of darkness and the starlight, that are watching their movements and watching them move around the fire. The one says to the other, he says, the problem back in Longsaddle has been taken care of. He says he will no longer be a problem to us. He says, good, very good. That's what I wanted to hear. He says, we just have to make sure that they reach the next town. It'd be quite interesting to see what's going to happen at that point to them. He said, but for the evening, he said, I've called a couple of friends to keep him company. He said if I wasn't so busy and had to take care of some other plans, he said it'd be interesting to sit and watch. He said, let's see how their new friend that they made in Longsaddle last up against these. So at that point, I'm going to add a new encounter into the game, and this is the Scarecrow. This thing looks pretty wicked, and I wanted to, yeah, this is going to be fun. Unknown to them, they have some hideousness heading straight forward towards them. But before any attacks, before any of that, let's see if they could possibly maybe hear what's coming. Maybe maybe they can hear this monstrosity moving through the forest floor. Who knows? We'll have to see. Oh, didn't slide there. Alright. So I'm going to have to pencil in. I'm just going to put a space for an NPC. In the encounters. Okay, so first thing I want to do is let's take a look here at their stats. +1 to their dex. Okay. So how I'm going to do this is these things are moving towards their location. They get a +1 for the dexterity. I rolled a 12, so they're moving at a 13. They're going to have to be able to, with a perception check, maybe they'll hear something coming towards them, something stirring out into the dark forest. If not, well, it's not going to be I don't think it's going to go very well for him. So let's go to the NPC card here, and let's see. The Druid, he gets a +2 for his wisdom. So he'll get a +2 for that. Oh my god. He rolled a 1. That's horrible. That is absolutely horrible. He's lucky that wasn't an attack or a saving throw. We would have to break out the Critinomicon for that. But he is completely oblivious as to what's getting ready to descend upon him. I want to see if Carnu hears anything. So he's going to get 2 there, and then, so he's going to get +6 to that bonus. Oh, 18. Yeah. Carnu at that point his ears have drawn him to a sound this way. He's gotten his normal speech back, and everything has slowly went back to normal with him. He stands up and he says, "Hey, did any of you guys hear that?" And walks over this way so he doesn't have the glare of the fire in his eyes, to look out into the direction of where he heard this sound from. Now, I'm going to give him advantage because he does have, let me see here. He has superior dark vision, so he can see 120 feet normally in total darkness. And the fact that where they're at, he should be able to see these two pretty easily. I'm going to use the same roll for the dex, which is going to be a DC of 13, and let's see what they get. Taking the higher of the two, 18 without bonuses. Oh yeah, he sees these two nightmarish looking figures that are not walking fluidly like a human being, but rigidly, almost like a construct, if you will. It's the only word I can think of to use right now. So now at that point, let's get the initiatives going. And alright, so Carnu. Oh, it's a little bit on the low side, but I'll take it. There's one. So 6. Carnu's at a 10. Let's see where Merrick is unconscious. He is out of the battle. Rangrim, let's see where he falls. 18. Wow, he's a nimble little guy. 21. Then our druid friend here, he's got +1. 8. Wow. And then now the encounters, which get a +1 to theirs as well. Oh, 21. Holy cow. Wow, so it's going to be Rangrim encounters, Carnu, and then the druid. Interesting. First things first. Rangrim walks over to where Carnu is standing, and he squints his dwarven eyes and looks out into the darkness. I'm going to see if he can see what our drow elf buddy here is seeing. Oh yeah, he sees it alright. He just looks at him and he's like, "Ugh." He says, "We must have been followed." He says, "Quickly, follow me." At that point, Rangrim has the battle axe drawn. He is ready for the battle. He's going to charge straight into this guy. As he exits the monolith, at that point, unknown to them because they didn't notice it, and before Michael can even utter the words out of his mouth, the protective barrier that he had set upon this has been broken. And at that point, they no longer have a protective barrier around them. So, keeping that in mind, they are all now vulnerable now. But let's see what Rangrim does. So he gets a +6 to his roll. So that would be a 12 with his bonuses. AC is 11 on these things, and they have 36 hit points apiece. Ooh. And of course I have to number them. So this will be number 1. And that'll be number 2. Alright. So, like, oh, I see there. It's a little out of focus for you guys, isn't it? There we go. That's a little better. We'll just move them up a little bit. Alright, so now time to deal the damage. 1d12 plus 4. Okay, so with my ability on 1 or 2 I can re-roll it, which I rolled a 2, but I have to keep the second roll. 2. So I'm going to do 6 points of damage to number 1 here. Yeah. So as Rangrim comes down with the axe, whoa, expecting to hit a soft part in his abdomen to think this thing's going to buckle over, he just hears the sound of straw and tearing cloth. And he's just kind of like, as he looks up and he sees this horrific looking face staring back at him with red little orbs of evil magical energy emitting from the eye sockets of this horrific twisted looking scarecrow face thing. Now, here's the unfortunate part. That was Rangrim's turn. Now it's Scarecrow's turn, and let's see how they're going to... So they get 2 attacks with their claws, and it's a +3 to hit, and it does 2d4 plus 1 damage. Oh man, that's... ooh. So might as well get another d4 out there ready. Okay, Scarecrow does 2 claw attacks. Oh, one is he rolled a 1, which is a fumble. The other one is an 11, but he gets... you find out he getting a +3, so that'd be a 14. Rangrim's AC is a 15, so this attack misses, but that he did fumble an attack. He did roll a 1. Let's go to the Critinomicon to see what this fiendish thing did. Damage fumbles 45. Let's roll some percentile dice here. 06. That's awesome. So we're going to have to edit that a little bit. So as this thing claws like this, the one claw that comes down above Rangrim's head, he's actually able to take his battle axe and boom, defend himself from the other attack. Its own claw rips across the hood of the Scarecrow's face, digging open the side of itself. And I think with that, we're going to have to roll 2d4 to see how much damage this thing did to itself. 5 points. I will take it. It'll take it down to 25 now. Now, this one moves in. It's his turn to attack Rangram. A 3 and a 4. No. Luckily, Rangram has evaded any attacks from that. At this point, Carnu springs into action. And let me see what I want to do with him. Because I could either do a spell. But the only thing I could really do that would affect them would be a Witch Bolt at this point. Let me see. Casting time 1. I'm well within range. What the heck? I'm going to do it. So, my proficiency plus my charisma mod. Plus 5 to that roll. Let's see what he does. Oh, rolled a 2. So, no. I was unable to concentrate long enough, and the spell did not go right. I should have just jumped down there and attacked with a melee attack. Oh, well. Now let's go to the NPC. Okay. Now that these creatures are here, so 5. I'm going to... I want to see if... I want to see if he can... Does it... The perception check can actually identify what this thing is first, before I go ahead with an attack. I want to see if he even sees it. So, he is human, which means he'll be disadvantaged. It's dark. I get all that. He'll get his +2 bonus still. I'm going to say it's going to be a DC 10 for the fact that he's only 5-10 feet away from him, and he's got firelight right here. No, he does not. Okay, so I'm going to have to look up Entangle. I'm familiar with that spell. Okay, and this is going to affect Rangram as well. 90 feet. Alright. He's going to cast Entangle. The only bad thing is, he's within this area as well, so I'm going to have to roll a save for him as well. But... I'm going to give him a +4 to... He's an NPC. I'm going to... 2 for proficiency and then 2 for his wisdom. So let's see how his attack roll goes off against these guys. A 14. Okay. So, casting Entangle, this area, which is 90 feet, if you can... this area, spread out. Grasping weeds and vines sprout from the ground in a 20-foot square, starting from the point within range for the duration of up to a minute. The creature in the area when you cast the spell must succeed on a strength saving throw or be restrained by the entangling plants until the spell ends. A creature restrained by the plants can use its action to make a strength check against your spell DC. On a success, it frees itself. So, I have a 14. As the vegetation and the weeds and everything at that point begin to entangle and grasp and wind themselves around these scarecrows and Rangrim, they get to do a strength saving throw. Now, the scarecrows, they have no bonus to their strength whatsoever, so I'm gonna roll for the scarecrows first. The first one has failed, he's entangled. The second one, 18, not so lucky. He is not entangled and affected by it at all. Rangrim now, on the other hand, let's see where Rangrim comes in, but he does get a +4 for his strength. Oh man. Rangrim is just completely entangled and he's unable to move. Both of these, he's entangled to the ground as well as Rangrim. Oh boy. So now it goes back to, well, Rangrim's entangled. This guy's entangled. This guy's free though. He's able to move and he's going to step on up on into the monolith because they no longer have that protective barrier. Just set that there. As he steps up closer to the firelight, it's at that point that the full horrific features of this creature can be seen. I have to see how these two are going to react to that, and if in fact if they're going to be frightened. That's the thing. Let's roll a DC 12. So first one I'm going to roll for is the druid. 9 plus his wisdom, 10, 11. He is frightened. Carnu, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, he is not. At this point, it doesn't really surprise him, but for whatever reason, our druid friend here is, he's frozen in fear at this point as to what he's looking at, which is a horrible thing because that means this guy's going to attack him. So he gets 2 attacks. Oh. So, one of them, in fact, does hit. Let me see what he gets here. +1 to the final roll, the 2d4. 4 points of damage. So, our NPC friend has 27. And he's taken 4, so he'll live. He backs up just looking at this thing in fright and like, oh my god, and the claw comes across and digs right into his arm as he's holding his arm, screaming, ah! Now, at that point, the NPC is frightened, so I'll have to roll for him on his when his turn comes up, which will be after Carnu's. Carnu, at this point, I'm just going to use his scimitar. I don't think the spell is going to work all that well. So we're just going to go straight to melee combat. He's going to step in and he's just going to with his scimitar. And I'm going to see how he... Let's see how he does, shall we? So he gets 2 for his strength. So it's going to be a +4 bonus to his roll. 13, doesn't even have to add the bonuses. He is hit. He does 1d6 plus 2 damage to this thing. Does 5 points. I will take it. Dropping this thing down to 31 points now. But, unfortunately, not enough to kill it. It's at that point I have to see if he... Well, he's lost his turn, so that's right. He's frightened. He's lost his turn. He cannot go this turn. But I want to see if he notices anything. Granted, he's in fear, but if he has noticed that this is actually a scarecrow and it's made out of dead, dried vegetation. So let's see if he perceives that or not. And, of course, it'll be at a disadvantage for him. Put in his wisdom. But he gets a +2. No, he does not. He's just, he's in disbelief as to what he's saying. He's been injured by this thing, and this horrific monstrosity is just, invading this sacred space, if you will. Okay. So now it goes back to Rangrim, and it was a 14. I'm going to see if Rangrim can break out of the entanglement. Let's just roll, and we'll add his bonuses. Don't even add 9. He rolled a 19. He just snapping the vines and the vegetation that was wrapped around him, winds his battle axe up. And because I haven't rolled for this guy yet, because it's not his initiative turn, I'm going to give him advantage against him for an attack. He is free. Alright. 18 and an 18. I guess I'll take the 18. And he's going to do 1d12 plus 4 damage to this thing. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's what I want to see. His axe comes down and he just cleaves right through it. Chunks of straw and stick and cloth and everything else fly off of this thing. And it stumbles around. The only thing that maintains its balance from it standing up is the fact that it's entangled to the ground. That's what's keeping it stabilized at that point. But moving forward, let's see if that thing is able to bust out of its constraints. So, it does not have any bonuses to its strength. It's going to have to roll a 14 or better. It rolls a 6. It's unable to move from the entanglement. But I am going to say next initiative round, because he is engaged with combat, the entanglement falls off. Alright, so now, this guy right here, he's going to attack the NPC once again. He does get one successful attack on him. Another 5 points. Okay, that's going to put him down to 18 now. Now, at this point, it'll be Carnu, followed by our NPC friend here. So Carnu's going to take another turn. I'm just going to see if I can Hit him again with the scimitar. Why not? Oh, man. Unfortunately, no. As he goes to swing at this thing, at the last moment, the light of the fire blinds his vision, and he misjudges how close he is, and over the top of this thing's head, which leaves us back to our NPC here, and I have to see if our NPC is still frightened or not. So, let's roll a save for him against his wisdom. He'll get a +2 bonus of 14 or higher. Let's see what he does. A 16. He is able to snap out of it. And at that point, he is equipped with a quarterstaff. I think he's just going to crack this thing with the quarterstaff and call it a day. Let's see how that works. Alright. He rolls a natural 13, so he doesn't need any bonuses added in, but he does 1d8 plus 2 damage. So he's going to do 4 points of damage to this sucker right here. Alright. And goes back to the top of the batting order of the initiative, which is going to go back to Rangrim. And now, to Rangrim's surprise, the entanglement has fallen off of this creature and it is now free. But he can still attack it, and let's do that. Okay, with all his bonuses, he's got a 15. He does hit, and he's going to do 1d12 plus 4 damage. Rolls a 10. I'm going to take that. Yes. Rangrim just lets out a loud battle scream, and as his axe comes down, as the entanglement is getting ready to releasing from this thing, the sound of a corn stalk being snapped in half by metal just rings out and echoes as this thing just crumples to the ground. And as it hits, the magical energy, the construct that's inside of it, imbued inside of it, a black mist comes out at that point, and then off into the blackness of the night. Alright. At least it's one down. Now, this guy's turn. So, let's see if he's going to keep attacking him or him. So I'm going to roll my percentage die. If there's a higher percentage, it'll be on the NPC. If it's a lower percentage, it's going to be on Carnu. 90%. He's going after the NPC still. Man, he does not like that druid whatsoever. 2 attacks. 8 and a 14. Unfortunately, the 14 does hit. He's going to take 10 points of damage from that. Yowzer. That's gonna hurt. That's, our druid friend here is pretty beat up. Alright. Now it is Carnu's turn. Let's see what Carnu is going to do. And unfortunately, because I'm next to that fire again and it's at night, I'm going to have disadvantage. Gotta take the 7. Okay, so the 7 with my bonuses here. Let's see what he's gonna get. His proficiency is 2. Take him up to 9. Then his strength, 10, 11. Hits right on the money. Despite being blinded by this firelight, his scimitar comes down and finds its mark onto this hideous creature. A 6. Hey. Plus 2, 8 points. Alright. He's now down to 19. As the scimitar comes down and cuts through it, and straw and dry leaves and things like that at that point come out of this creature near the heat of the fire. I want to see if either one of them, I'm going to roll 2 20-siders. You're going to have a higher than 14 or better. Notice that this thing is made out of dry vegetation and they're by a fire. So 2 20-siders, the blue will be for Carnu, the red's going to be for the druid. Okay, red one is a 17, which for the druid, and he gets 2 for his wisdom. He notices it. Oh wow, I can't make this stuff up. The blue one right here is also a 17 for the druid. I'm sorry, Carnu, and now I'm getting confused because both dice are 17. They both realize it at the same time, I should say, as the sword mark hits. They see the dry vegetation come out, and the light bulb goes off. Fire. Alright. Let's see. That was Carnu's turn. Now it's the NPC's turn. Okay, so he does have a quarterstaff. I want to see if he can possibly use it to try to hook this thing towards the back and push him towards the fire. And so, this is how I'm going to do this. First thing is, I have to roll a normal roll to see if I connect to even hit him first. So, I'm going to get an 11 or better. I hit it right on the money, 11. So he connected. Now, is he going to have the strength at that point to be able to push this thing? Because he's got a strength 11, so he's going to have to see if he can roll a 13. He does it. Alright. So he is able to hit this thing, wham, pull it that way, off balance towards the fire. But he does take damage before he hits the fire. So 1d8. So he's going to take 4 points of damage on his way over. Should put him down to a 15. Okay. Now, as this thing stumbles towards the fire, it's going to take, I'm going to roll a d4. I want to see how many d6 points of fire damage this thing is. 4. Oh wow, this is going to be fun. Let's get him out there. Okay, so that's going to be 22 points of fire damage. He's only got 15 points left. This thing just is like a dry kinder box. I mean, it just whoa, right up in a bright, bright flame. Now, I want to see which way this thing is. Oh, man. I want to see which way this thing is going to run. It's been off balance and it's going to move, and now it's on fire. So how I want to do this is go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, right? Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you will. So let's roll a 6-sider and see which direction he heads to. three. 1, 2, 3. This thing, as it's nudged into the fire and catches, just whoa, comes stepping out over to here. There's just flames billowing off this thing. It's heading right towards Merrick. Merrick, who is hanging out here. At that point, they see what's left of the black spirited creature that was, its spirit was endued into this construct, scream and come out into a will-o'-the wisp of blackness, and then swirls and goes back off into the darkness of the night. This thing just crumples to the ground in a heap of sticks, twigs, and straw, and just burns up rapidly until there's nothing left than little glowing embers that blow away in the wind. The only thing that there's any evidence that it was left behind are just the scorch marks on the rock right here. Oh man, those things were nasty. But it's at that point, let me see how the rest of the evening goes for them. Hopefully there's no other encounters. See if I got a high probability. 48%. No. Morning, they make it through the evening without any other issues whatsoever. And at that point, through the conversations that they've had, he has an idea that what they're talking about is red larch, and he is able to direct them in the way and leads them as close as he's willing to get to red larch, which is within an hour's walk of them entering that area. Let's see if they encounter anything. They do. They do have an encounter, and I'll have to pick up on that in the next video. Alright, hello and welcome back, my friends. So here it is. It is game night. It is Friday night. This has just been a crazy long week for me. And you cannot believe how excited I am to sit down and actually get back into gaming. And it in fact is October 9th. So as my video is premiering, I have this one in the work. And so before we jump into it, I wanted to talk about something real quickly. And that was about minis. And you notice I use miniatures a lot. I love miniatures. As you can see, you know, I got the HeroScape set up here, the D&D minis, and I talk about them a lot. So, and I was really honestly excited about this. So, you know, every once in a great while I'll buy a booster pack of minis, and normally I have to admit the last couple of times kind of got, well, they were lame. I don't know how else to put it. I was pretty dissatisfied with them. So I decided, the last time I bought it, I said, that's it, I'm not buying anymore. But then I said, you know what? I'm going to roll the die and I'm going to try again. So I picked me up one of these booster packs, which is, I don't really know how long these have been out. But anyways, I saw it and, you know, it had a pretty decent price on it. So it tells me these have been out for a while, and I thought, oh, what the heck, so I'll get it. And to my surprise, like I said, the last couple of boosters have been kind of horrible. This one, however, sometimes patience pays off and you get something really cool. I just wanted to show this off. I was just so excited. It's a Frost Giant. And they've kind of changed the... I do know on the bottom of the miniatures they used to have a numbering sequence on them, and you could tell, okay, this was made in 2014, so this has been out for a while. And it says 27 of 51. So I don't know if this is the 27th figure in the series of 51 figure sculpts that were made, or if only 51 miniatures were released and this is the 27th of the 51st. That I don't know. I haven't researched that yet, but if anybody, you know, out there, if you are aware of this or have a little bit of information on that, go ahead and leave me a comment. I'd really like to know about that. It's a very cool figurine. It's a Frost Giant, and man, my imagination's running wild with this, what I could do with that. And just a complete game scenario I could build around it. Anyways, with that out of the way, guys, I hope you guys have had a great week, and I hope, well, just like up here, I mean, it feels like summer again. What can I say? We're up here in Michigan, and man, we went from having frost and barely hitting 60 degrees to it's 80 degrees today, and here it is at almost, you know, 8:15 at night. The sun's down, and it's still 70 some odd degrees outside. It feels like summer again. I'm loving it. But speaking of that, let's get back into the game here. And I have to say, if you guys are enjoying these videos as much as I enjoy playing my games and you guys watching this, click that like button. And, you know, if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe button. Whether you play, you just enjoy to watch, you're new to the hobby, you're a veteran to the hobby, whatever it may be, click that subscribe button, followed by bell icon. Every time a new video is uploaded, you're going to get a notification, so that way you do not miss one. Alright, so where we had left off, the Scarecrows were defeated, and I had rolled the dice, and the rest of the evening was quiet. It's now morning, and as the sun is just starting to come up over the horizon and the landscape is starting to bask in the sunlight, if you will, the adventurers begin to move around and become active, if you will. Carnu, Rangram, Michael, the NPC, the druid, and they hear a familiar voice. They hear, oh, man. And Merrick, at that point, sets up. And he's holding his arm, and he's like, oh, man. He goes, I feel like I've slept forever. And let's see. Based on his perception here, so if because the last thing he remembers is he was in the cellar of a tavern. And how do I want to do this? Yeah, we're going to roll against his wisdom, which is his perception. And I want to see how he reacts to his new surroundings. So, he gets a +3, and let's roll a 10-sider for the base. Let's see where that's at. 10. So, he's going to have to roll a perfect 20 to be able to be like, oh yeah, hey. He rolls a 6, and +3 is a 9, so no, he sits up and he's looking around, and he's looking around at the surroundings, and he looks over at Michael the Druid, the NPC, and he's like, who the hell are you? And he says, and where the hell are we? And why the hell have I been sleeping so long? I want to see how, let me see how Rangram is, let's see how he reacts to this with his charisma. So, I'm just going to roll a 20. And so I got a 15 plus when it's 16. It would pass any, we'll say, just easy DC pass. And Rangram just kind of belts out a laugh. And he's like, he goes, at last. He goes, we thought we had lost you. He goes, unfortunately, he goes, those skeletons in the cellar. He's like, it was just horrible. He said, what do you remember? And at that point, Merrick's like, I remember, he goes, the skeletons, I remember, he goes, at that point, just a big whop. And he's like, it's almost like the lights went out. He goes, that's the last thing I remember. He goes, I just feel like I've been in an extremely, extremely deep sleep. So at that point, Michael walks over and he says, well, my friend, he says, it's good to see you. He says, my name is Michael. He says, your companions ran into me in the town of Longsettle. He said, and it's a good thing that they did. He says, you were very close to death, my friend, and if it wasn't for my medicine, I fear you would have passed. At that point, Carnew's like, he's telling the truth. He said, I thought you were gone. He said, and believe it or not, I think I would have missed you. At that point, Merrick smiles and says, thanks. Thanks, Carnew. That means a lot coming from you. So Carnew walks over and he helps Merrick to his feet. Merrick stands up and he's stiff. He's like, oh, man, oh. And it's at that point, Michael's like, whoa. He's like, easy. Just, he goes, slow steps. He goes, don't push yourself. He says, you're not 100%, but he goes, you're a hell of a lot better than what you were. He says, okay, I know who you are. I know who they are. Where the hell are we? So at that point, Michael says, welcome to my, how do you put it, my ancestors, their temple of nature, built by ancients long ago, passed down through the generations, and this place still holds a lot of magic, mystery, and there's a lot to be learned from it. He's like, Merrick's looking around at it going, He goes, it's nice. I mean, given the fact that, we're surrounded by, well, heaped up stones, earth, fire, trees, bugs. Did I miss anything? I want to see how the druid reacts to Merrick, because this is the first time he's really meeting Merrick. And if you remember, when I created the character, his personality is he's short-tempered and quick to insult, and he's also a slob. He's not the cleanest person in the world. And so I want to see how he reacts to this. So he's got a +0 to his charisma. A 16. So ooh, he did not get it. Michael is quick to say, most people, after you would save their life, not even meeting them, instead of insulting what little you know about them, most people would say thank you. Pieces I get, maybe in your social class or in your village, shire, whatever you want to call it, you come from, that's just not your typical custom, I take it. Let's see how Merrick's going to react to this. Okay, so 17, that's going to be the DC. I'm going to roll. Oh, I hope this doesn't go bad. So he gets a +2 to his charisma. An 8. Merrick at that point goes and just spits over here on these ruins, these sacred ruins. And pretty much, he's sitting there just being a slob self. He's, belches and he's stretching and he's like, well, he goes, considering I didn't ask you to heal me, I don't think I need to, thank you for anything. Although I have to say, I'm pretty sure my companions here probably paid you gold. I mean, come on. You can't do everything for free like you're just, totally 100% gonna save everybody in the realms for nothing. He goes, I don't buy that. He says, gentlemen, I have to go empty the bladder. And he walks off, heading over that way. Rangrim, I want to see how Rangrim... I want to see what his reaction's going to be to his charisma. Same thing, 17. I'm going to keep that DC. A 6 plus 1 is 7. Rangrim is just like, he goes, I am so sorry. He said, I should have mentioned my friend, he doesn't, he's, how do I put this? Diplomacy isn't his strongest suit, shall I say. I want to roll a perception check for him. And for the druid, that is Michael. And let's see where the DC is. A 15. 14, and his wisdom, he gets a +2, so he notices it. It's at that point, Michael's like, excuse me, and he's like, he goes storming out yelling, hey, 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 he's like, no, don't pee on the temple, don't pee on the temple. Carnu looks over at Rangrim and he's like, yeah, it's good to have him back, isn't it? He's like, I think maybe we should be heading off at this point. He goes, I got a feeling Michael's gonna get sick of us real fast. So, as they head over this way, Merrick and Michael are having an argument. Michael's explaining that he has desecrated his sacred temple, and Merrick's like, what sacred temple? He goes, I'm looking at a rock. He's like, I had to pee. I peed on a rock. He goes, ooh, so what happens when it rains and it gets wet? He's like, what do you do then? I have to do this. I have to get this out of the way. I just have to do this. I have to roll another charisma check for the druid. I have to see if he can contain himself or not. It's going to be a 19. He has like no bonuses. This is going to be real hard. 17. Okay. So Michael tries with all his might, and he's just trying to hold back his anger, and he tries to turn away, and as he's clutching his quarterstaff, and he's just like, he stops, and he grins and looks out of his corner of his eye and turns towards Merrick. As Merrick at that point is pretty much just going about his poor... He's just a jerk. There's no other way I can put it. I wanted to say just poor temperament, but it's not even poor temperament. He's just a jerk. And, yeah, it's at that point the druid cast, Entangle upon him. And, well, let's see how he does. It's a +4. So that'd be a 13. Let me see. Merrick's AC is a 14. So, as the vines and the weeds around here begin to move and towards his feet to start to entangle him, it's at that point Merrick's like, hey, 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 and he's jumping to stay ahead of it as he's running away. And the druid's just like, yeah, that'll teach you, that'll teach you. He's like, get away from my temple. Okay, so I gotta see what Rangram and Carnu are gonna do about this. Because this is just, oh man. Yeah, this is just getting silly. So, I'm going to roll for Carnu first. He gets a +3 to his charisma. He gets a 13. And Rangram has a +1. He gets a 14. And it's a 12. So, pretty much about the only thing they do is they're just kind of laughing watching this, and they're trying. And Rangram and Carnu walk out, and they're like, Michael, look, we should have warned you that our friend is a little, well, rough around the edges. He kind of rubs everybody the wrong way every once in a while, but he really is a good guy once you get to know him. And at that point, you know, Michael's sitting there watching him as these vines and everything are growing out, and he's just like, hey, trying to keep one step away from him from getting entangled into the ground. Which, by the way, let me roll again and see if he is so lucky to evade it again. Yep, he's staying way ahead of it. And so Michael says, fine. He says, just do me a favor. Just keep him away from me. Michael reaches into his belt pouch. He pulls out the last of the medicine, and he's got one last dose left. And he goes, here, Carnu. He says, I'm going to give this to you. And he said, personally, I would keep that between you and Rangram. Just saying. It's ultimately your decision. He at that point points off to where their position to the east, and he says, we have to begin walking that way. And I guess we should go now. Okay, so they break camp. We're gonna move that out of the way. Now, when I had ended my game session the last time, I did roll the percentage, and there was one encounter that they have encountered before reaching their destination point, and that's where I'm going to get into here. So my question is, the encounter, it's daytime, is this a friendly encounter or an unfriendly encounter? So I'm going to go back to my percentage die, and I'm going to roll on that. So let's see. If it's a high probability, it'll be unfriendly, and if it's a low probability, it'll be a friendly encounter. 002. Okay, so that can be perceived as one of two ways. You can either look at it as a 0-2 or a 1-1. 102. Um, 79. We're going to say that's a very high 102 probability, and unfortunately it is a not so nice encounter. Let me get back to my box of tricks here and see what we're going to encounter. I think I know what we're going to encounter. It fit in perfectly. So, as they head off in to the early morning, as the sun's coming up behind them, Carnu is leading them on a path that takes them back into the very dense, ancient part of the forest where the tree canopy at that point is covering the sun, and it's very, very dark still. Let me see here. What do I want to use? What the heck? So, Rangram pulls a torch from his backpack, and Carnu has a flint and steel, and he's choo 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 boom till they get to torch the light. And once it's got a decent flame going, at that point he's like, Merrick, and he's like, here, carry that torch. Merrick kind of looks at him and he's like, why do I gotta carry the torch? He goes, because you don't have dark vision, you're still healing, and you owe that man up there a debt of gratitude, so why don't you hold the torch and light the way for him? Merrick grabs the torch and he's like, ugh. And the only way that he can, as he goes walking up, and he's like, which way are we heading? And Michael looks at him and he says, just stay on the path. If you want to go ahead of me, go ahead, and we'll be on this for a little while. I'll tell you before we have to change direction. He goes, but just don't get too far ahead. So it's at that point they are in a very dense old forest. The sun has not, at that point, broken through the tree canopy to light their way, and it's still dark. Which makes our drow friend here very, very happy, because he does not like daylight so well. So, as they are moving through the forest, it's at that point, Carnu moves up and he says, how much further on this path before he said, turn off? He says, we'll be on there for a while. He says, good, I'm going to scout ahead. He said, I just need to get ahead of the torchlight for a moment. He, at that point, slides ahead of Merrick, and he says, whatever you do, do not leave the group, stay with them. And Merrick's like, fine, fine. Alright. So after an hour has passed and light is beginning to slowly creep through the tree canopy, not enough to where our two characters here would be able to see very well, but our characters here that have dark vision can see extremely well, and they can see a change in the colors of the shadows, if you will, undetected by their eyes. Gotta have that caffeine. Alright. And I know what I'm going to pull out here. I'm gonna roll a 10-sider to set my DC. Oh man, a 20? Really? Ugh, dang. Alright. So Carnu, because he does have enhanced dark vision, he's going to have advantage. And I'm going to roll against his wisdom for a perception check. And I'm going to give him his bonuses, which will give him a +6. Oh yeah, we'll take 16. And he sees it very well. Now, the encounter, which also has dark vision, let's see, not enhanced dark vision, what they have. Okay. So as Carnu is making his way through the forest, and I'm going to say he's ahead of him a bit. We're going to space it out like that. He's far enough ahead of him that he doesn't have the glare of the torchlight. It's at that point he sees something moving in the forest. He stops quickly and he turns and he motions to Merrick like this. Let's see if Merrick sees him. So I'm going to roll for Mr. Merrick here, and where should we set the DC? What the heck? Roll the 10-sider. Let's find out. 19. Oh, jeez. Okay, so +5 to his roll. Okay. Merrick is like just basically in his thoughts. Let's check that real quick. I want to see. I'm going to go to the Oracle for this. So, is Merrick thinking of a way to be just totally disgusting and rude to Michael? A 5. Oh, no. Wow. So, it's at that point Merrick is trying to reconcile in his mind exactly what happened. He's remembering bits and pieces of the battle in the cellar with the skeletons, and he's remembering the moment that the skeleton attacked and everything just went blank. Unfortunately, he does not see Carnu as he's motioning to him to stop. Carnu, at that point, kneels down and he quietly draws his scimitar out. And now I'm going to have to I'm going to have to do is, at this point, the encounter does not see Carnu right at this moment. But they are going to get advantage to see this torch and these three characters walking through the forest. So we're going to give them that roll right now. And, -1 to the roll. Oh, wow. So they rolled a natural 20. Yeah, I mean, even a -1, it's going to put it at a 19. Rolled a 9 on a 1d10 for, I mean, so they see them. They're shining, obviously, like a torch. It's at that point, the encounters decide it's time to descend, and I want to see, I'm going to roll 2d6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they're 10 squares away from where they can see him. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So they're not even in, they can see them. Carnu sees them because he's closer to him. Carnu's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or spaces from them. But they are focused on the torch. That's what they see. And let's see what the encounters are going to do. So I'm going to roll my percentage die. If I roll high, they're going to charge straight towards them and just blindly attack. If I roll low, they are going to try to hide in the surrounding forest terrain as best as they can and ambush them. Or so they think. So let's see where this is going to go. 42. Okay. No, well, they're not that bright to begin with, so that doesn't surprise me. So here's how it's going to go. First things first. Let's get our initiative out of the way for the encounters and get that going. So, ooh, Carnu is moving quick. 7 at 21. Rangrim. Oh man. At a 20. Merrick. Wow. At a 21. Michael. Holy cow, man. At a 20. The encounters. At a 16. Alright. Wow. So it's going to be Carnu, Merrick, Rangrim, Michael, then the encounters. This ought to be quite interesting. Alrighty. And of course they get a movement of 30 feet. So they decide to charge, or as they think, they're charging towards this torchlight here to get themselves easy pickings because they're looking at it and they got them outnumbered. So 5, 10, 15. So as the first one reaches here, 5, 10, 15, 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. Oh, that was supposed to be a 2. 1, 2, 3. It will be number 4. 10. It'll be a number 5, so I got 1. Wait a minute. This should be number 2 here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 6. Okay. Alright, I'll sort it out. So before we start the initiative order, this mob comes charging in. Unknown, as he draws closer, Carnu's going to get an attack with advantage. Okay, I got a 16 plus 4, take me to 20. This is gonna be very evil. I like it. All right, 1d6 plus 2, 4 points. All right, could have done better. Wish I'd done better, but I'm gonna take. Well, yeah. Oh well. As they come charging in, the first goblin that comes in, he's like running with some late travelers heading back, thinking we got easy pickings here. To his surprise, and what he doesn't see is a quick scimitar that comes up like that, slicing into him. As Carnu connects, he yells, "Attack!" All right. He got his first, that surprise round, out of the way. Now, Merrick's turn. Merrick at that point snaps out of his thought and he's like, oh, what? And as he heads closer to see from this, he heard Carnu yell. So it's going to go 5, 10, 15. So, what we got to do is move the battle section this way. I'm going to move these guys back here. We're going to say he's here. And to keep the spacing... I'm going to put him here. And I'll just move these guys up so you guys can see them. Otherwise... it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to you being off camera. Okay. So, Merrick at that point, he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yep. 5, 10, 15, 20. Merrick. Take one more step. 25. As he comes up behind Carnu, he can now see what Carnu's at that point engaged with battle with him. The only thing he has in his hand at this point is a flaming torch. What the hell? I'm going to throw it at this goblin. Let's see what happens. He'll get a +5. So, yeah, he doesn't get anywhere close. So he he whips the torch, and you just see the torch go up and over and poof, into the woods. Don't know if that was the smartest thing to do, but okay. Now, Rangrim's turn. Rangrim, and unfortunately, I don't know if he's going to be able to get up there into the battle at time, but we'll see. $25, so I can go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Rangrim is heading towards the sound, and he can see now as he's getting into view. Rangrim engaged in battle. He can see the group of goblins coming this way, and he saw the point where Merrick throws the torch like, here, take this, and misses them completely. And now it is the NPC Michael's turn. He has a speed of 30 feet, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now, I want to see if they can see these guys, if they can make them out. They should be able to. I would figure there'd be enough light. But anyways, to keep it fair, let's roll a d10. 20. Wow, man, I'm rolling extremely high tonight. Alright, I'm going to roll for these two guys. They do not have dark vision. And, well, so 19. And with his +2 for his bonus for Michael, so he has a 21. He can see him. 17 for Merrick, and he's going to have a +3, which is going to be a 20 for him. So they both see what's going on. If you can see, you can cast a spell. I think he's going to just cast Entangle on them, and let me break out that spell description again so I have that. Okay, here we are, range 90 feet, 1 action, 20-foot square starting from a point within range. Okay, so 90 feet, I mean, and he's going to cast that on the goblins. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so he's going to get a total of a 15. Their AC is a 15. At that point, yeah, they'll have to have a strength check against, so they'll have to have a 14 as their DC to try to break out of this. And it's at that point, the vegetation, the vines and the tall grass and all that begin to entangle and pull down on them, and the goblin starts screaming and yelling, and just like they thought they were going to have easy pickings here. Well, they found out, nope, it's not gonna work that way. All right. So, I think this is going to be the easiest way to go about doing it. I'm going to roll, let me see what their strength, they get a -1 strength. That's too fun. Okay, so this guy first, and I'm going to roll 2 20s at a time and just go through because there's 6 of them here. So the first 2, this guy gets a 1. He's got a -1. This guy right here has an 8, so he does not succeed. And these 2, so going back here, I know you can't see them off camera because they haven't advanced far enough, but we're going to go to these 2 guys back here. A 12 and a 9, no. These very 2 back here. This one, and it's hard for you to say he's off camera, is a 9, and the one in the very back, number 5, rolled a 19, which would give him an 18, and he has broke free of the entanglement. Now, let's consult the Oracle and see what he's going to do. Is this goblin going to run? 15, yes, but a 1. A twist to the relationship between the people in the situation. I know what I'm going to do with that. I'm going to keep that for towards the end. It just came to me as to what I want to do, and I don't want to reveal it yet. Okay, so in fact, the goblin back here off camera, he's back here off a ways. He breaks free of the entanglement, and he has turned the other way and is bolting away from all of his comrades here that are becoming entangled, and will probably be dead here in a very short moment. So I'm going to take him off the board and scratch number 6 off of my list because he's no longer going to. Okay, now let's resolve this fumble. A -1. Hmm. $76. All right. Okay. So, as the goblin right here went to go try to break free of the entanglement, in fact, he tripped, falling face first into these vines that are growing, and they have just totally engulfed him as they moved out over to, at that point, entangle and pull the rest of his companions down to the forest floor. To the point where he's almost covered. He looks like a big pile of vines, and like the best way I can explain it to you is like if there was a vegetation hump in the middle of the trail is what he's looking like right now, screaming for his life even though he's wounded and bleeding. But now this. All right. Now we get back to Carnu. Carnu, at that point, I'm going to... I think I'm going to cast Witch Bolt. They're tied up. I'm just going to start electrocuting them. Oh, and of course, because they are entangled and they're not a movable target, he's going to get advantage to his roll for this. You know, it's kind of like shooting goldfish in a bowl at this point. Okay, take the 8, which is the highest, and with my bonuses right on 13. At that point, the Witch Bolt spell goes off. This one, which will be my first one I will choose, is going to take 1d12 points of damage. Seven. Ooh, they only have 7 hit points. At that point, as this guy's trying to break and struggle free, he just sees a bolt of vibrant electricity go right into the top of his skull. And the goblin at that point starts screaming loudly until its eyeballs boil and blow out of its head, and there's steam pouring out of its ears and its mouth, and he's literally being cooked to death at this point. You gotta love magic. Okay, number 3 is off the board. Now it's Merrick's turn. Merrick at that point I'm going to use his bow. I don't want a chance getting anything happening to him at this point, and with all the magic going on right here, I don't think it would be a good idea. So, and of course he's going to get, he can see them, with the electricity, and the goblin being cooked and not being able to move. He can see very clearly his target, so he's, of course, going to get advantage as well. And he's going to get a +5 to that roll. Right on the money. 13, and they do 1d6 +3. Oh, number 2 right here. Let me cross the arrow off here. As Merrick releases the arrow shaft just dead on the money, straight into the goblin's throat. Just and things like as its body's being dragged down to the earth and tangled underneath vegetation. Number 2 is dead. Okay. Rangrim's turn. Rangrim, well, he can see there's a battle going on, and 5, 10. He steps up and he can see at that point Carnu's casting his spell, and he can see the electricity and the vines moving around and everything, and he's just like looking, and he's like, Oh, what is that smell? As the smoke of the cooked goblin comes wafting over into their area. Oh, man. So I'm going to hold back on Raingrim. I'm just going to let... He's just kind of like, okay, there's just too much magic going on here at this point. So while we're at it, let's pull these two guys into the camera view that are still entangled to the earth. And, yeah... this point, Michael's just going to maintain his spell, and that'll be his turn, and we will get to the encounters. So now they do get a chance to roll to see if they can break free. It's at that point they would have to roll a strength score higher than 14. With they got a -1, so let's see what they do. Number 4 right here, a 3, that's a 2. Number 5 right here, a 6, which will give him a 5. No, they ain't going nowhere. All right, goes back to Carnu. Carnu picks a new target. This guy right here is going to take 1d12 points of damage. As he sees the electrical bolt that just fried his friend, he sees it come over. Oh, I'm having too much fun with this. Okay, let me... I gotta get to my notes here for my spell. Okay, 1d12 lightning damage. Alright. So this turn, number 4 takes 5 points of damage. And he still has 2 left. At this point, this goblin is currently being electrocuted and fried to death. As he watched in his horror the lightning bolt take down his friend and then slowly move around, going zzz, zzz, into his skull. He's screaming out. Whew. Merrick's turn. Merrick's going to draw another arrow and take aim at that guy. And he's going to get advantage again. We're going to take the 19. And that'd be 5 points for him. So the arrow, he releases it. It doesn't kill the goblin, but it shoots the goblin into the chest, where it is not an immediate fatal hit, but the goblin at this point, how do we put this? The arrow just boom, right into his chest, and the goblin just like, oh, is hanging at that point off balance as the entanglement of the vegetation is just drawing him more further down towards the earth. Okay, that was Merrick. Raingrim. Raingrim can see he is just, well, having fun roasting this guy. He sees the arrow hit him, and he can see the goblin, and he's just like, perhaps somebody should do the right thing and put him out of his damage, out of his misery, I mean. Let me take care of this. 5, 10, 15. And, of course, he's going to get advantage. He's, you know, really not a whole lot he can do at this point. Drop the 20-sider on the floor. We'll take the 15. And, yeah, he doesn't even need to add bonuses into that. He's going to, yeah, slaughter him. I think that's, you know, the nice way of putting it. But he gets a 1d12 plus 4 for his damage. He rolls a 9 plus 4, which is 13 points, and he only has 2 hit points left. So at that point, Rangram just walks up and he's like, his axe comes across swiftly, and you hear the distinct sound of as the goblin's head flies up, and the sound of thump, 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 thump over into the tall grass off the trail is heard. Okay. That was Rangrim's turn. Michael is going to maintain spell. Well, that's going to go for a minute anyways, and we're not going to... Anyways. And get back to the encounter. So, these two guys will have the chance to see if they can break free. He's going to have disadvantage. And, yeah, he's buried underneath it. He'll have disadvantage as well. I cannot see how he would get out from underneath that. So 14 is the DC. Number 4, a 1. Yeah, that ain't too good. Number 1. Ooh, wow. 18 to 13. He's going to take the 13, and he gets a -1 to his strength, which is going to put him at 11. Very close. It's at that point they can see the vegetation mound move a little bit differently, and they can hear him screaming, trying to get out, and he's like, ah! And now, back to Carnu. Carnu, 5 more points of damage, and the goblin's head, at that point, his eyes and his flesh is literally boiling off of his face. His eyeballs just blow out, and it's at that point, Rangrim's just like, oh my god, he's like, that is so disgusting. And he is dead. Which, at that point, Carnu breaks his concentration as he sees the goblin dead, and the electrical bolt just dissipates into the atmosphere. Merrick's turn. Merrick's attention is drawn towards this vegetation mound that's screaming and kicking, and he's just gonna wind up an arrow and shoot it into the mound and see what happens. And of course he'll get advantage for that. He's gonna take the 12 with his bonuses. +3 to hit. He's hit. Straight into damage. He does 3 points. Let me cross off that arrow there. The arrow penetrates into the vines, and the sound of a solid thump is heard, and the commotion underneath the vegetation mound ceases into silence. At that point, Michael the Druid breaks his concentration, and the vegetation slowly releases and goes back to normal. As they peer over the bodies, we'll say, of the goblins, Carnu notices something, and he says, "Whoa, what's this?" And the one goblin that broke free and ran off, well, not everything ran off, but he sees a pouch laying on the ground. He walks over to it and he picks the pouch up. As he opens it, let's go to the Oracle. Does he find something valuable? Oh, man. So he did not find something that he would find valuable, but there is a but to it, and it's an adjustment to the physical environment. As Carnu picks up the pouch and he opens it up expecting to see gold or perhaps something valuable, what he finds inside is nasty, rotted meat, which is a delicacy for these goblins. And the smell is so rancid, I have to roll, at that point, a Constitution save for him. And let's see where the DC falls. A 19. Oh my god. Oh boy. So he gets a +4. He rolls a 16. Not quite. It's at that point Carnu tosses the pouch out into the woods and he's like, and he starts vomiting onto the trail from just the overall stench of the rotted meat. I want to roll against the Oracle. Is there anything valuable they find amongst the goblins? Yes. And let me roll on this other table. So, as they are looking over the carcasses of these 5 goblins, I'm just going to roll. Let's do it this way. A Constitution save for all of them at this point. So, Rangram, it's a +4 to his. It's a 19. Okay. He can't handle it. The smell of burnt goblin, and he grabs a pouch, and he grabs one and he opens it up and he sees a beautiful sight of shiny, shimmering wealth. And he's like, and he takes that one and he's like, ah. He sees another pouch and picks it up, and without question opens it up, only to find more rotted meat where the smell is just too much, and Ragram's like at that point. Merrick, as he's looking over the corpses, and his Constitution is a +3. Okay, same thing with him. He's just is digging through, and runs across to one of those bags as he's laughing at these two guys as they're like, oh my god. He's like, opens it up and just the horrible absolute smell of this bar fest that's happening right here. I want to see what Michael is going to do. And, oh god, Michael is by far the worst. He rolled a 2, he gets +1 con. He is literally just extremely ill, holding onto a tree, just as he looks over at Carnu and he's like, did you have to cook him? Did you have to do that? Alright, with that out of the way, I want to see how much gold that they received. So, I am going to roll a 1d6. 2, I'm going to say 20. And there were 5 of them, so I'm going to roll that again. 4. Okay, that's not bad. 80. So altogether, across all of these guys, they found about 80 gold pieces, which is good because they're almost broke and they need money anyways. So they take the gold, and it's at that point, Carnu elects Rangram. He's like, here, let's let Rangram hold on to the gold. We'll sort later. He goes, let's just get the hell out of here. And at that point, all the pouches are distributed into his backpack, and they move away from the area of this just... I can only imagine the next person that comes across this path is just going to see 2 burnt goblins, these other dead goblins, and vomit everywhere. What they're probably going to be like, what the... But anyways, so it's at that point they make it out of the forest and back onto a path. Let me roll and see how much time has passed. An hour. So an hour has passed, and as they come back onto a familiar site, which is the Tradeway Road, Michael tells them, well, my friends, he says, it has truly been an honor to get to know each and every one of you. And he said, Rangram, can I give you a bit of advice? He says, moving on from here, he goes, you may want to keep your name Ironfell. He says, you may want to use a different name. He said, in spite of everything that has happened, he says, I don't feel as if, how do I put this? I feel as if maybe you have enemies inside the kingdom that may wish you dead. I want to see how Rangram reacts to this, and I'm going to roll a perception against his wisdom here. He gets a +2 and 19. That's really high. Rangram's like, yeah. He says, I do. Unfinished business, if you will. He says, maybe it's best if, when you introduce yourself, I would just keep it as Rangram. Rangram Stouthammer might be a better name for you. Rangram's like, Stouthammer. I'll think about that one. He turns to Carnu and he puts his hand out and shakes Carnew's hand, and he says, "It's been an honor to get to know you, my friend." He says, "You are quite a you are a very good individual." He says, "I just want you to know that." He says, "Despite what people think about you and, well, dark elves, as you may have it," he says, "you are a good person, Carnew." And he says, "You are always most welcome." And he said, "Oh, by the way," he hands him a small little leather pouch. When Carnew opens it, inside he can see a reddish brown type of leafy herb that's in there. And Carnew's like, he looks and he's like, "What is this?" He says, "That is the what I refer to as bitterroot. It's what I gave to you back in Longsaddle." He says, "It helped break the effects of your spell. It increases concentration." He says, "And if you ever run into the problem again," he says, "there's more than enough there. You just have to put it over some hot water, and it'll help you." He's like, "But please, I want you to take that." And he said, "If you're ever in Longsaddle again, you know where to find me. Don't," he says, "come by the shop at any time, and don't be a stranger." So I'm going to put that into his inventory. He looks over at Merrick and he says, "Well, my friend, even though we've only had a couple of short hours to really get to know one another," he says, "I am glad that you are feeling much better, and he says, I hope safe journey in your travels." And yeah, it's at that point Merrick looks over at him and he says, yeah, he says, "I liked it, man. That spell you did. I got it. How do you do that? I mean, how did you in fact do that?" And it's at that point, Michael looks at him very sternly and he says, "Well, for starters, you don't pee on sacred temples. For starters." He says, "And I am very devout to my gods that give me the knowledge of being able to attune with nature to do that." And Merrick's like, "Oh, okay. Attune with nature. I can dig that. He says, "One time I found these mushrooms," and he's like, that's great." He's like, "I'm happy for you, my friend." He said, "Well met." Rangram, as he says, "Well, hold on." He says, "Before you go," he says, "I think fair is only fair." It's at that point, Rangram pulls out 10 gold pieces and he puts them in his hand and he says, "Here, my friend." He says, "I hope this will help you in any way possible." And he says, "We're in debt to you. I know you said," he goes, "Hold on." He goes, "You mean the ingredients?" He's like, "Yes." He says, "Mr. Ironfell, I don't think this will be our only meeting. I think we'll probably see one another sometime later." He says, "At a later time," he goes, "Don't worry. I believe the gods brought us together for a reason, and the gods will bring us together again." He said, "With that, Mr. Ironfell," he breaks out and he shakes Rangram's hand, and he says, "Please travel well and be safe. And if you're ever in Longsaddle for any reason," he says, "Aye, of course, friend. I will look you up." He said, it's very hard to get a dwarf's trust. And he says, but this is one dwarf. You have my trust, and I'll have your back. If you ever need something, don't hesitate. He says, you'll know where to find me. We're going to be going, I guess, to this town over here. He said, yes, I'm aware of it. I will not. He said, but be careful, my friends. And just remember, you'll know how to find your way back to Longsaddle. Just follow along the tradeway. It'll take you right to it. He says, but I've been away from my people for far too long. They're probably wondering why I have not returned until yet. And I should go check in and explain to them everything I saw and what happened in Longsaddle. He says, it's just, yes, lots of things I must do. He says, well met, my friends, and I will most definitely look forward to another chance meeting with you all. He says, farewell. At that point, Michael turns and goes back into the forest. And as he walks deeper into the forest in the clothing that he's wearing, he begins to camouflage himself amongst it. He turns briefly and waves to him again until what almost seemingly looks like he disappears right out of sight. Carnu pulls his hood up tight over his head, and he looks up at Rangram and he's like, well, friend, he says, I think it's time we head this way and find out what the gods have in store for us. Rangram's like, yeah. He says, I hope you know what you're doing, because I'm getting a bad feeling about this. He says, don't worry, the gods didn't send us here for no reason. He says, what about you, Merrick? Are you up for another adventure? I'm sure they have a tavern here. Merrick looks up at him as he's scratching his armpit, and he lifts up his leg and he just lets out a horrible, nasty, he's got a flatulence problem. He's a slob. And he's like, yeah, of course I am. He says, so when are we going? And he says, right now. He says, we head that way. He says, an hour that way up that road, and we'll be into Red Larch. Alright, my friends. So, that's where I am going to leave this off. I think this is a good point to end this right here, and at that point that would be a good time to go into here. So a couple of things I want to talk about before I end this video. So first things first, you can see how I like to use my NPCs and how I say don't be afraid to use your NPCs as tools when needed. As you can see, Michael, the druid, turned out to be, well, very, very helpful in that situation, and I really liked the dynamics of it and how it played out. And that's the cool thing about the NPCs. But something else. So when I look back at the story, how it's progressed, from them leaving the mountain range and reaching Longsaddle to what seemed like a just typical tavern type of encounter, to what they did encounter, and everything that happened along the way. So at this point, I'm going to raise these guys level to number 2. Now, if you look at it this way, I had an encounter with the rats, the skeleton encounter, the scarecrow encounter, and 2 goblin encounters at that point. Now, if you look at it in XP-wise, just from going out of this manual and saying, well, you don't have enough XP, that's one way you can do it. It's not the way that I do it, though. The way I look at it, look at everything that has happened so far and unlocked into the story and how the story has progressed and moved. For me, I kind of look at my RPGs as like a chapter of a book. Long Saddle was a chapter that was opened, and now I have closed it. And with that, I'm going to level my characters. Now, the other thing I want to talk about going into this. So when it comes to using a campaign module, I'm going to use this as the backdrop to my game, not actually sticking to a very, how do I put this, a very tight line, if you will, of following it for word, because that's not really the way that these were designed. And here's the way I believe in the old gaming style, which is there's something you don't like, change it to have fun. If it doesn't work out and you're not having fun, there's, you got to reevaluate that. So for me, Elemental Evil and all this is the backdrop. I'm going to add my own twist to it, and I'm going to use this as the setting once we get there and see how it goes. All right, my friends, until the next video, if you liked it, click the like button. And if you have not subscribed, click that subscribe button followed by the bell icon, and you will not miss a video. Until then, game on, my friends. Game on.